This conference will now be recorded.
Oh, you weren't having your camera on.
It just seems dumb to have it off. Like, I don't know.
Morning, Frank. The light shines favorably on you, Frank. You got an aura behind you.
Morning. Yeah, I got the window blinds closed as much as they'll close.
Tracy.
If I move the
You look
better.
pretty, Tracy.
No, thank you.
She has her you know what look face
Hi,
on.
Tracy.
Oh, she's got her
Not
hair
getting
all
sleep
lit.
either.
Oh no. Are you on the no sleep cycle, Tracy?
Uh-huh. I got up early enough to be able to do my hair. I figured I got the hair, if I do wash and wear, I frizz if I don't set it before going to bed. If I go to bed with my hair wet. But yeah, if I have a special little curling one that works wonders.
It looks curly today.
That was the intention. Tired of flat.
So this is
Yeah,
practice
magic
when
wand
level
makes
5
it
is
grow.
fully virtual. This will be our staff meeting of the future.
Darn it, so I do have to do my hair. Note to self. Hair and nice blouse. That's the ticket.
Did you ever watch the Jetsons when you were a kid? And she would be in her curlers and her robe, and she'd put on her mask and then turn. I'm like,
Yep. Only if it was that easy. Where are you? Oh, there you are.
Morning, Tony.
Yeah, how you doing, Todd?
Doing well, you?
Great.
Well, let me get started here, everybody. It's the top of the hour. We had 4 or 5 people, at least, that emailed me that couldn't make it today. So we have a light group. But for those of you that haven't been here before, my name's Todd Smith. I'm the owner of Level 5 Financial. We host these monthly kind of Q&A sessions where people can drop in as they see fit to ask any questions. As I remind everybody, it's not really designed to be a educational event per se, which we also do at least quarterly on various topics. We just did one on cybersecurity with CBI last month, and we'll have future ones coming up with various topics. But these are really just designed to be a Q&A session. So people can drop in, ask any questions they have. If they don't have any questions, they can simply listen. We also send this out for people that were not able to make it as well. So we have a light group today. So I'm not going to force this. If we don't have a lot of questions or a lot to talk about, we will cut it short and see you next month. So good morning, Jamie. I see Jamie's online. We have Tony, Frank, Jessica, Tracy, and a few people. And Jamie just left. So, but welcome, Tony. I think this is your first time here. Are you here just to kind of be a fly on the wall, or did you have any specific questions today?
I don't have any specific questions, so I guess I'm a little bit of a fly on the wall, but I just wanted to sign in and see how this is going, see if you had an agenda, or I'll participate as it makes sense.
Yep. Okay. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining. And if you need to drop off for whatever reason, just give us a wave and feel free. You can also chat questions you have in the chat box if you prefer to do that as they come up. I will say, no, we don't have an agenda, so I'm shooting from the hip. It's really just another resource that we offer folks to come in and engage us, to visit and ask questions. We try not to, real quick, I see you raise your hand. We try not to get too personal with information. So your stuff, your questions, Tony, we try to keep it general. We are recording this as well. So if it's really specific to you, depending on your comfort level, we may want to do that offline. So go ahead. Thanks for raising your hand.
Maybe everybody knows everybody, but I thought maybe we give each other 15 or 30 seconds just to say who we are, and just because I don't know the names. I could say, hey, the lady with the glasses, but they both have glasses. So
yeah, that's a good idea. So I can tell you're a former executive and also a business owner. Maybe this is too kind of laissez-faire for you, but yeah, I introduced myself. You want to introduce yourself, Tony, since you recommended it, and then we'll go around.
You already did most of it, but my name's Tony Radecki. I am retired from ExxonMobil, where I was in the technical side of the business and did achieve kind of an executive level, but that's not too much bragging. And I have recently moved to Colorado. I've retired. I have a home here. I had a vacation home for 30 years, and now I live here. And I also bought Evergreen Station, which is a gas station convenience store out here in the country between Florissant and Cripple Creek. And I've owned that for 21 years, and that is up for sale. And my house in Houston is up for sale. So I'm liquidating assets as best I can. I don't want all that stuff, and I need to know what to do with my money and how to pass it on to my children without the tax man getting everything. So that's why Todd is really, I've engaged him and try to figure out that estate planning part of the business.
Yeah, that's great.
45.
Thanks, Tony. That was a good intro. You didn't go over by any means. So I'm going to segue to Frank, who will be helping with some of the information, some of the items that you just talked about, and he'll let him introduce himself. And you also are kind of in the same kind of era of life, so to speak. So it might be a good transition. There's some similarities there.
Well, that was really, my name is Frank Zawadzki. I want to compliment Todd for calling me old with being very nice about it. Being that era in my life. Tony, I retired from Caterpillar. I was going to ask you, did you have any interaction with the Caterpillar lubricants program? Because ExxonMobil was our source.
No, I was mostly on the upstream side. I did some downstream business too, but I was more in the project development company where we design and built the projects worldwide. Then we turn them over to refining operations or production operations. But I was in the design and build of big facilities part.
Okay. Yeah, well, we were a user. So anyhow, this is kind of a second parallel career for me as a financial planner. I met Todd way back when we worked at Vanguard together back in right around 2000. I was on a 5-year sabbatical from the heavy equipment business, but I went back to it. When I retired, I went back to financial planning. So we got hooked up here a few years back, and I'm kind of an older version of most of the client base, so he has someone who can relate to the seniors.
Yeah, I joked that, Frank and I philosophically we're about 95% the same. Technically we're very similar, but he has a different lens just because he's kind of crossed the rainbow, so to speak, before I have. So he's a good asset to the team for sure. So he's also another certified financial planner, so he does a lot of the technical analysis, looking at and creating financial plans. So without giving too much information, Tony, the stuff that you sent me recently, I'll share with Frank, and we'll get back to you on that. So, and then we have Tracy. I don't think you've met Tracy, have you, Tony? She's kind of my right-hand gal. So most everybody on here is staff right now. So Tracy, you want to just introduce yourself real quickly?
Hi, I'm Tracy. And gosh, I've been in the financial field going on to about, 11, 12 years now. Started off in New Orleans, moved up to Colorado about 4 years ago. My memory just told me I moved here 4 years ago. So I've been here for 4 years. Um, Drastic jump myself. I was in the food and beverage industry for 11 years before I was like, got tired of that. And I wanted more excitement in my life. What's more exciting than finances? So I hopped on over.
Well, you could buy Evergreen Station and then you'd have food and beverage and financial worries. So that'd be great.
That's an option. That's an option.
There you go. Todd will discuss that in my upcoming financial
Yes.
plan
Well,
meeting. We'll see if we can budget it.
Yeah, your personal development budget. It might be a bit over that, but we'll see. So yeah, Tracy worked for Eddie Jones before here, so she brings a lot of technical expertise. So we're happy to have her. And then Jessica, who's kind of the newest addition to the staff, she does more compliance and operations. So that's a relatively new seat. It's me as the CEO taking more off of my plate and kind of giving it to more team members. So you'll see Tony and other people on the line that I've assembled a team so that it's just not me and my eyeballs looking at your situation. So we use a pretty thorough team approach that we usually have at least 2-3 advisors looking at things as well as strong support behind us. So Tracy or Jessica, you want to maybe give your background's quite different. So you're new to finance, but you have an interesting background. So briefly, yeah. And you're muted.
Yeah, I unmuted. It took me a minute. So yeah, I was a classroom teacher for about 20, 25 years and kind of decided to leave that and start anew. Help my husband. I'm not sure I'm supposed to introduce myself as your wife. We should have probably discussed that before.
Sure.
So I'm just trying to take some of my teacher skills and transfer them into finance to support the business.
Yep. So she is already making an impact. She's feeling a little lost since it's all Greek to her. She's a scientist by trade, so she's very analytic and reading everything. So she complements my big picture view with all her details. So, but she's creating impact already, which is nice. So, thank you, everybody. I do see Jamie on the line. He's in Florida. I don't know if he's preoccupied, but you're happy to jump in, Jamie, if you have time. If not, later on.
I can jump in, and if we don't listen to Jessica, we get hit with a ruler, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Virtual.
Some of us have
Any
scars.
Florida, Jamie.
Yeah, once every year I come out and visit Todd in Colorado. So I retired from Colorado to Florida. Well, actually, I moved to Florida before I retired, but I was working with a small boutique defense contractor called Lockheed Martin for 30 some odd years, and moved out here. And I inherited Todd. My mother had contracted with Todd and had an account with him. And when she passed, I inherited the account and Todd. And so Todd's taken over the rest of the stuff. So as you sell all that stuff, she was up in Florissant. So I don't know if we ever visited your gas station or not, but we were up in those neighborhoods. But I was going to say, what you do is you get rid of all that stuff. What you do is you give all your money to Todd, and he makes you a whole lot more money. That's his job.
Thank you, Jamie. I didn't even pay him for that, so thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'm sending out good karma because I'm about 2.5 weeks from selling my condo on the beach. And he's told me I cannot pay off my mortgage on my new house. I need to give him that money so he can invest it better. So I'm going to test him on that. And so we'll be doing that hopefully in a couple, 3 weeks. But yeah, kind of like you, I retired. I don't think crossing the rainbow is the right thing to call it.
As soon as I said that, I was like, oh no.
Yeah, yes. Moving out into the sunshine, I think, is a better way to put it. I've worked too hard to cross over to the rainbow yet, so yeah.
Many years from now.
Yes. Yeah. But to give you an idea, Todd's been doing these kind of things for a couple, about 6, 8 months now. And each one of them's a little bit different. And the people that join are a little bit different each time. And it's just kind of an exchange of ideas. And he says a lot of stuff and we ask a lot of questions and we go away with more information we started with. So.
Great. Thanks, Jamie.
And so,
I'll be in Florida in 2 weeks, but again, too far from you. I'll be up in Winter Park for business. So.
Winter Park?
Yeah.
Well, that's only an hour away.
Oh, you better come see me then. Yeah.
All right.
I do want to make it to the beach because that's inland. So I don't know. I may head somewhere. I will let you know for sure.
Yeah, if you're in Winter Park, we're the closest beach.
Yep.
So and that means in July I now have to bring 4 sandwiches, right?
That's right. We keep expanding. Yes.
Yeah. All right, I'll shut up.
Well, thanks, Jamie. Say hi to Chris for me too. So you bring up a good point. I'll just segue into the Q&A portion. You say, one of the common questions I get is about paying off debt, paying off mortgages, whether it's prior to retirement, in retirement. The way you described it, it was almost that it was a self-serving that I want all the money to invest. And obviously that's an inherent conflict of interest that me and my firm have, but we make sure people know that. But I think it's worth reiterating, and I've mentioned this in other calls, is that discussion, gosh, I have it probably 4 or 5 times a week with folks, is an important one, because really what we're looking at is how do we give retirees the most flexibility and the most options? And frequently paying off debt, if it's good debt, does not really lend itself to that. So there's really 2 points. So it's really 3 kind of considerations that I cover with people. It's really what is optimally, what do the numbers tell us? What is an optimal decision financially? And then the behavioral side, the emotional side. You've all heard me joke about the SWAN, the sleep well at night decision, and it's reconciling those. So a lot of us, I have older family members that aren't too far from the Great Depression, and a lot of us are only 1 generation away from that, and we've kind of been embedded. You shouldn't have debt. Debt is bad. Dave Ramsey doesn't help us with that, and especially in retirement, we shouldn't have debt. So the financial aspect of that is, is your debt low single digits, like a lot of mortgages? So mortgage rates these days are still, I haven't checked recently, around 3%. So to me, if it's a house, it's appreciating asset typically, and that's low debt, that's good debt to me. If you compare that to consumer debt, that is probably high single, double digits even, and it's really not attached to a potentially growing asset, that's more bad debt. So a mortgage, essentially the argument really is, if you pay off the mortgage, yes, you don't have that bill, but now your money is trapped in that asset. You can't really access it. So you lose accessibility, you lose liquidity a little bit. But then it's not technically really arbitrage, but there is that arbitrage. You're taking money that could potentially be earning 6, 7, 8, 9, 10%, depending on how you're invested, and paying off money at 3. So that spread with current prevailing rates, it really doesn't make sense to do. So Jamie, that's really my advice, is that people that are retired, even having that mortgage payment each month, we don't like that. That's the SWAN, that's the behavior. We don't want that debt. You come out ahead because hopefully your money is earning and compounding for you well north of what that rate is. Plus, one of the issues in retirement especially is the ongoing healthcare risk and extended care risk, and having money in the bank or liquid assets makes that easier should that event happen. So I like giving people flexibility and accessibility, whether it's invested with me or not, and where interest rates are, it just makes a lot of sense. Now in 5 years, if interest rates hopefully we don't go back to the 70s. But if interest rates are much higher, it might be a different discussion.
I apologize for oversimplifying, but I too was one of those go into with no debt. And when I paid off my condo, we discussed this a lot, and I paid it off, but have now paying attention now, and I oversimplified it, but yeah, I understand where you're going with that, and we discussed that last July, so that's what makes the sense of what we're doing now.
Yeah, and it was more for other people that may be listening to this recording. It's just a common thing. It's worth reiterating, I think. The common question is when people say, I need to have the house paid off. I'm going to retire next year. I need to have the house paid off. And I say, why? And they look at me funny and they just say, I don't like having debt. And that's fine. That's fine. You just need to know the pros and cons of each, right?
Yeah, the discussion we had was, my concern was having the monthly payment and cutting down the available cash I had. And you said, well, I'll just give you an allotment for that monthly payment so that you don't have a deficit on cash, but I'll take the rest and be able to invest it. My loan is at like 2.85 or something like that. And if I'm getting return in the 6 and 7 range, I can take the $21,000 a year out and still make money and end up with more than I started with and take out the money for the next year. So once we went through that calculation, it made a whole lot more sense to me. So
Good, good. And I will say Jamie is an auditor,
If I might add,
so he checks all my work. Yeah.
I was gonna say, if I could add anything by being a child of the 70s, my first mortgage was 13 1/4, and my second was 12 1/2. And paying that off made sense because you weren't going to earn the guaranteed rates that high. But now that rates are in the 2s and 3s, it's a whole different equation.
Yeah, I share your personal story too, Frank, sometimes. What was your situation before you moved to Colorado?
I owned a house with no mortgage. And then when we moved out here, rather than pull a whole bunch of money out of investments and potentially paying some taxes, it said at 2 7/8%. I said, I'm going to let this mortgage run 180 payments. The first time it's ever happened in my life. Hopefully I'll live that long. But like that money's so inexpensive that you're a fool not to take advantage of it.
Yep. Okay, well, good. Thanks for sharing, everybody. Tony, any questions about that? You're nodding your head. It makes sense, right?
Yeah, and I like that. It's cheap money now, and you got old expensive money, you get rid of it and liquidate that debt. But if it's cheap money, it's there. The little bit of thing that probably concerns me most now that I passed on to Todd and put it first on his list is, and maybe this is being a son of a depression type guy or watching some things happen recently, is that when my end date comes, I want it to be easy on the kids as far as transferring all this stuff. I have gone through too many watch happen where people die, their stuff is not really in good shape, even if they're in financially good shape. And a lot of money goes to probates and lawyers. And it's not really that, it's the emotional part of the family. They got enough things going in and throwing out all the crap, or I should put a different word, but getting rid of the stuff, what to keep, what to not, and all these financial things. And I've just watched these executors that are not necessarily qualified to do it. It just, a lot of money seems to be wasted at somebody worked for their whole lives. And my dad doesn't even get a dime to the government. So, he's bought silver bars and put them in the basement in a safe, and stuff like that. So my emphasis is I like to make it easy to pass it on to the kids. And that kind of is over, but I don't plan to have my end date happen for 30 years, but I need to be ready so that it's not so complicated with the kids. And that's why, even though these assets I have, my house in Houston and Evergreen Station, I mean, they're really good, profitable assets, accumulating in value, very little debt. I just don't want them to be in the executor list to try to liquidate, because I think they just lose a whole bunch of money in that liquidation process because they just want to get rid of it. And so they're not going to get top dollar. Anyway, that's the phase I'm in, planning for the end date, not wanting it to come for 30 years, but still making it simple. So that's a little weird.
No, that's helpful. So, your estate planning is obviously germane to that, right? So having the proper documents, and that's what we're talking about, in place, having your beneficiary designations first and foremost is where it all starts. So for clients, we send out a letter. Tracy, I believe, sent it out last week. We remind everybody, here's the beneficiaries that you have designated. Please check this. Please also check other assets that we may not be able to see. So if you have, that's the estate plan. That's the important part of the estate plan, is having your beneficiary designation correct. Because anything that has a beneficiary designation or TOD or transfer on death or payable on death at the bank is going to avoid probate. It's clean and simple. So knowing what I know about you, Tony, for instance, you liquidate these two assets, you should be able to have most of your assets under that kind of arrangement, right, with Fidelity or with whomever. You just got to make sure that everything is accounted for, and that you review that as necessary. If that's the case, then your estate plan shouldn't really be complicated. That's why I forwarded our partner firm, EP Navigator, as a solution for that, because we can help you draft the necessary documents in an easy and a cost-effective way, where you don't necessarily have to get a high-price attorney involved. Okay, so that is one option for simpler estate planning, and that would provide wills for both spouses that would cover power of attorney in terms of financial as well as medical. That would provide the living trust, or living will rather, which would be your advanced directives. And then we would help decide whether a trust is necessary on top of that. So there's two packages within that deliverable. One is just a will package without a trust. There's all those documents I just mentioned. The second is a trust package that is everything with the trust on top of it. So the decision then becomes, do we really need and want a trust? And that's been some of the conversations in these previous meetings. So so for people with a basic estate and basic planning, if they have all their assets in liquid accounts and they have that beneficiary designations, that's all they really need. Now with sales of assets, like you're talking about, Tony, in your instance, and potential tax, right? Samantha and I have talked a little bit about the potential tax on that. There may be a reason to do something a little bit more sophisticated from an estate planning standpoint, using trust or more advanced strategies, and that's what we're exploring, right? So, but take that aside, if that were not in play, I would think just getting your documents in order, making sure your beneficiary designations are in order, you'll be fine. The other thing I want to bring to light too, that I remind everybody all the time, is a service that we offer here for our clients, and I can make it available to you if you want, Tony. You may have something like this. Frank has one at home. It's his, what do you call it? The Doomsday Book, Frank? Something like that.
Yeah, basically it's and I have to update it. I have to admit I've been a little delinquent in updating it over the last few years, but basically it's okay, folks, I'm gone. Here's a bunch of stuff that'll make your life simpler. Right. Account numbers, where to find things, how bills get paid. In other words, a good example is, if you have certain bills being drafted out of your checking account and you pass away, the checking account technically should be getting frozen. And what it enables, the Doomsday Book says, hey, look, folks, you're going to have to pay this over. Here's the number to call to get it switched to where the bill goes to you as the executor, that sort of thing.
Right. So we provide everybody with what we can call your personal financial website that serves as a digitized version of your doomsday book, or it could if it's utilized. And I can't say that a lot of people are using it to its full extent. So if you can see my screen, I shared a sample of what that looks like. Katie and Tim Stevens are not real people, but every client gets one of these, whether it's financial planning or asset management or both. And I just want to remind people that it is there. And what it does is several things. It becomes that financial hub, that doomsday kind of archive for single login that allows you and a spouse or a trusted contact to really log in and see everything all in one place. So it uses an aggregation feature. So any accounts that you have, any liabilities are all aggregated into one central depository. There's an organizer in terms similar to when you get your taxes done. You can keep professional contact information, income, expenses, future goals, financial priorities, all there.
Todd, what do you call this? You don't call it doomsday book. Is it the end date book, or what is this thing called?
I call this is a personal financial website. So that's what when we're talking to clients, that's what we refer to as your personal website. But it's a way to get people organized, keep everything in one central place to make it easy. It also has an advisor interface. So on the back end, we log in, it looks different, but we can use your data to then do more planning. And so what's convenient about that is any planning that's done historically, I've been doing this for multiple decades, that it was always like, give me all your paperwork, I'll create a plan, and then I'll give it to you, and then it's already antiquated, and then if we revisit it, give me all the paperwork again. This is a way to create an ongoing planning, living document in a way. So we can use this data on the back end for planning. For those who like tracking spending, if you aggregate your accounts, it's like a QuickBooks for personal finance. So it will categorize your spending over the month. It's smart enough to remember that in future months. You do need to clean that up. You can track your investments, whether internal here or elsewhere. And then the vault, which is more relevant to what we were talking about, is we create folders in here. We keep your estate planning documents, your tax returns, things like that. Jamie,
Passwords, Facebook passwords for bank accounts. That's the one I was missing. But this one looks like then you could create some for that. I'm trying to give my kids all this stuff, but they're millennials. I'm worried about where they file things and how they put passwords on them and everything like that. But what this is a depository that, to me, you could put all that stuff in, and then they have to sign in with the top secret password, and they can get to all the things.
Exactly, right. So instead of having a binder at home with all your stuff, it's just online. Yep. So exactly. So it's multi-purpose. So it's for estate planning and making things simpler for your kids. But also there's a financial planning component to it. And then the last part is just a reporting functionality. You can do balance sheets, cash flow, things like that. But yeah, I've worked, unfortunately, it's a fact of life. I've worked with a lot of families that have somebody pass. And we're talking about kids in your instance, but it can even be pretty messy for the surviving spouse.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, what I've experienced is a lot of households, there's one decision maker and the other person is kind of in the fringe in terms of what they know or how much they look at it. So this is a way of kind of bringing that couple together to be on the same page. Jessica can even say that, because we're late bloomers in terms of our marriage, she wasn't privy to everything in my various businesses and finances and all that. And we use this together. And I had to remind her the other day, I'm like, well, it's in our personal financial website. She's like, oh yeah. I'm like, you're just like one of our clients. You forgot. So that's why I bring this up. So it's a good tool. Questions about that? Any thoughts, anybody?
how is this, okay, related to Samantha and Kelly and Chulik? I mean, is this under that umbrella? Is this kind of separate, or I'm trying to, you know,
Yeah.
I have Fidelity manages a lot of the liquid assets, and Samantha is my CPA and she knows where all the skeletons are. But I'd like to put all the skeletons in this basis because it'd be much easier. But then how does that relate to Samantha and
So
Kelly?
yeah, that's a great question. It's a little, yeah, I can see it's a little convoluted. So Samantha and I are partners, so we provide that proactive planning of which you're part of together collaboratively, her firm and my firm. So Level 5 Financials, my firm, so we offer this particular service. And then so generally people that engage Level 5 Financial get this as part of that. However, I'm offering it to you as part of the proactive planning that I do in collaboration with Samantha. So this is something I would just send you an email invite and you just create your credentials and off you go. So happy to do that.
Is this something like that people would typically let their CPA, or like in my case, Samantha, have access to, that they're one of the password people?
Yes, we have offered that too. We have a Alliance login section. So for any Alliance partner, we can do that. And what we do every year, so in your case, for instance, we're going to Samantha and we're getting tax returns. So we provide a tax return analysis every year for clients. Samantha's firm will upload directly to this portal for us, as long as we have client authorization to do that. So there is some symbiotic kind of interaction there between this and that. Again, it's, you know, it sounds great in concept, and practice isn't always as smooth as I like, but yeah, we have that capability. Yep.
Do you like tell people you got to make all the accessible people, they got to meet once a year and actually have to look at this thing, or once a quarter, or is it, I guess you can monitor if they access it or not?
I can generally see when people log in, but I use it during periodic reviews. So if you and I were going to meet, say, in Q2, and I might say, have you gone in and updated your organizer? Are things up to date there? The more up to date that is, the better. Yep. So that's typically how we do it. And then as constant reminder during tax season, please get us our tax return. Please upload it to the vault. That's another way of getting them in there to utilize it. Is that kind of what you were asking, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just got a call from my wife, which is one of the people that should be accessing all this type of stuff. So I'm trying to get her to sign on to our session, but I think it might be a little too late.
Oh, okay.
One thing that you didn't mention, Todd, that would be useful for him is down the accounts, the left-hand side, for example, the cash, the credit cards, you link those to your actual accounts. So your cash is your bank account, and you'll link your bank account to that and your credit cards to that. So as those fluctuate on a daily basis, it fluctuates in here on a daily basis. So when you sign into this, you see what is on an up-to-date minute-by-minute basis.
Right. Yeah, I think I used jargon. I said aggregation. Yeah, that's what that is. So when you go in and add accounts, we don't ever have your password and your username or anything like that. You just find, so if it's Fidelity, for instance, you can go into Fidelity, you click on Fidelity, you put in the username and password, it will scrape the data here. So that you get an up-to-date, it's a data feed every day. So you have an up-to-date kind of listing of everything. And then if you wanted us to look at something, it's much easier for us to do that on your behalf, right? Because it's live. Yep, thanks, Jamie. The other thing I wanted to bring up, not that this is a level 5 thing, but a new addition I wanted to mention to people is our asset map process that we're using. Are you guys familiar with the term mind mapping at all? Mind mapping is really taking a somewhat technical concept and mapping it out in a visual depiction of that process. So if it's Exxon or Caterpillar, you can mind map whatever process you're doing, and it's just a different way of doing it. So we started using a software to do that for people to simplify their financial life, and it's called Asset Map. And I will just share that with you because it ties into this software here where you can certainly look at your balance sheet, right? Which gives you a listing of your assets minus liabilities and your net worth. But the reason we started as kind of an add-on to this, and Jamie, actually both of you, I'll probably create one for you and share it with you. So we created this add-on as kind of just a visual depiction of the same thing. And so this is what it looks like here. And as things get complex and you have beneficiaries and estate documents, we can now map out your whole financial situation on one page. So I think that's simple for people in general, but also for beneficiaries, right? Here's everything on one page. So you have the family members at center. You have income for each person left and right. You have assets owned by each person left and right, and then you have joint assets. So all it is a visual depiction of your balance sheet, which is a new thing we're doing this year. So my call to action is really to have everybody have an asset map, because I think it's a good thing for everybody to have. But then it's going to be a drill down into what we call the fire drills, or the 6 L's. And that's making sure that the 6 L's within this context are taken care of for everybody. So let's see if I get this right. The 6 L's are longevity, loss of life, long-term care, long-term disability, and what's the other, which one am I missing, Frank?
Liquidity.
Liquidity, right. So we talked about that before. So we'll use this as, hey, do we know of everything? Is this mapped out appropriately? Are things owned correctly? You know, why is this asset owned by Chris, Jamie, not you, or not jointly? You know, how is this going to work in terms of when somebody passes? But then we're going to drill down to make sure that all those kind of those 6 areas are taken care of for everybody. So that's another resource that I'll map this out for you, Tony, and you can put it in your vault, and everybody.
So this would be like I've sent you my net worth spreadsheet. You kind of put this onto that, and I guess it links with the other thing too, as far as when things get updated, then this would get updated.
Right. So as things change, we would update this. So say we have a meeting in a year, we would keep updating this for you as things change. Correct. So yeah, it's a visual depiction of your balance sheet, really, with a little bit more information. So this is a balance sheet you can get in the personal website, similar to what you sent me. I think you sent me yours on Excel or something. This, you know, which you have to manually update, I imagine. This is just going to be automated for you, and then the asset map makes it look like that. Make sense?
Okay.
So yeah, I will do that for both.
I would say it also includes insurance coverage too.
Right. Yep, I didn't cover that. So insurance is up here. So any insurance you may have. So really, the goal is to have everything on one page.
What's interesting for me on this, it's my question to you is, we had a little discussion about my pension. And, you know, I get so much a month till I die or my wife dies. I mean, it's 100% survivorship. And, you know, I showed it on my balance sheet as an asset. And the comment was kind of, nah, that's not really an asset. And then I thought, it's the biggest asset I have is my ExxonMobil pension. That's really the cornerstone of income or for me and Nancy till both of us pass. So I'm curious how that would show up on this asset map.
Yeah, and I'll just bring other people into that conversation that we had. So I said that to me, I think we're splitting hairs a little bit, but to me, a pension like Social Security is an income, a cash flow item. It's not an asset. You can certainly do the present value calculation, which you did, which I'm impressed because a lot of people don't know how to do that or even think to do that. You can do the present value calculation and create that as an asset value. I said you could do the same thing with Social Security, and most people don't realize that if you took the present value of your lifetime Social Security payments, that's easily worth $1.5 million, depending on how long you live. So you could make that an asset as well. But to me, in the context of retirement planning, your assets are your investable assets, your properties, and then the rest are a cash flow item that is going to be flowing in, right? So you got your expenses going out, cash flow, income coming in is cash flow. So that's all I was saying.
Security show up here somewhere on this thing as an income? Okay, over there. Okay. I can't quite read it. Okay.
Yeah, it's grayed out because it's a future in this particular instance. So your income would show up here. In this example, they're getting W-2 income because they're working. The Social Security is grayed out a little bit because it's a future cash flow item. So regardless of how you decide you want to list it, whether it's an asset or a cash flow, it'll either show up here as a cash flow item or income, or it'll show down here as an asset.
Okay, great.
I don't know if Frank has any input on the asset versus cash flow discussion, but I don't think it matters. It's accounted for. We know it's your biggest asset, however you want to term it. So.
Yeah, I think it's better viewed as a cash flow income element, because people have a monthly mentality. I mean, we grew up getting a paycheck and paying our expenses. So to me, it makes more sense to have it as a cash flow item.
And
Okay.
To me, I would look at it that way too, because when both of you pass, the income stops. It's like having a job. While you're working at the job, you got the income, but as soon as you quit the job, it stops. So it's not really an asset that your kids can inherit. It's, income that you have while you're living.
Okay. Okay.
Good point.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Thanks, Jamie.
What is a good thing about the ExxonMobil pension I did get is actually, if I pass and Nancy passes during the first 5 years, the kids still get it for 5 years for the remaining year. So
there's a term certain on it. That's good.
Yeah, but that end date's coming soon because that's 5 years after I retired, which is July of 2022. So I'm telling the kids, don't take me out because you're not going to get any of that.
Right. I was just thinking the same thing. You might not want to tell them that at all.
You missed your window of opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there's life insurance too for the first 5 years, and that's going away too. And I don't really plan to supplement the life insurance with private life insurance. It was good for Exxon for 5 years after I retired, and they get all the stuff, but I don't really plan on taking life insurance after 2022. But maybe Todd will educate me on that too.
Yeah, that is on one of my items. I'm going to send you a list of clarification questions. So yeah, real quick, I would just say that generally where you are in life, you don't have an insurable need, right? However, there are instances where insurance can play into the estate planning conversation, depending on how complex we get with it and your desire to create a legacy or an estate for family members and the kids, right? So life insurance can kind of play in that realm, but from a strictly insurable need, like to protect your wife or to pay off debt or something like that, which younger people would really be concerned with, it doesn't really fit for you. So I would agree. We're going to be looking at other more advanced things that maybe insurance is part of that solution, but I'm doubtful at that point that would come into play. So.
Yeah, and Frank, just for your information, I've told Todd too that I want the casket check to bounce. I'm not here to necessarily leave huge legacies for my kids. They'll get the cabin here in Colorado, 15 acres and a nice house and, garage and all that. But besides that, I'm telling them my plan is to live to my end date and have the remaining liquid assets be pretty small. But we'll see.
Well, that's a consideration. Everyone's got a different long-term view, I guess, as they call it.
I
They're all
always
legit.
I always make this joke. I don't know if I made the joke with you, Tony, but if I could figure out a way to make everybody's last check bounce, that would be a great patent. That would be wonderful. Maybe I'll pull you in, Jamie, with your numbers. Maybe you have some ideas, but yeah, it's really hard to do. So
I was gonna say, I don't have any kids, and I'm looking at it totally different, that the nephews and nieces that I have, I'm looking for, a huge payday for them, hopefully. I mean, the way I look at it is because you don't know when the last check is due, I want as big a number out there as can have, because if I live to be 150, I still want to have money out there to spend. So,
Yeah.
I'm looking at it that way, is just keep that number getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So,
yeah, and that's an example of when an insurance solution may come into play is like, yeah, I would like to have something, but I need the assets and the income for my lifestyle, and I want to make sure we're okay. So using that insurance leverage is a way to kind of have the best of both worlds, depending on how much of a priority it is for you and what that cost is, right?
But
So
if you don't do the insurance, you do it the other way. You make them like having you around for as long as possible, so they're really nice to you for a really long time.
well, you don't tell them that you have insurance for that purpose. It's a surprise when you're gone. That's all.
Yeah. But that would show up on this asset map somewhere too, right? There's a long-term care insurance or life insurance. It must show up somewhere here so they know about it.
It does, but it won't say necessarily who the beneficiary is, right? But you are correct. You are correct. We do have the ability to hide things, but we don't want to get into that because then we forget what we've hidden and you don't want to go down that road.
I'm not that smart. I got to tell them everything. I'm not that smart.
Yeah.
I got to show it to them.
Well, this is a good conversation. Thanks for participating, everybody. I did have a number of questions that came in before today that I don't think I'm going to get to. I'll probably save for next time since we're getting close to the top of the hour and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. But are there any other thoughts or questions about what we've talked about today? No? Frank, any closing thoughts?
Not really.
Okay.
You talked about doing an asset map for Chris and I would say probably hold off on that because I don't know how up to date the stuff is in the system. I haven't played with that part for a long time, so it's probably way outdated. So I don't want you to waste your time. But in preparation for our July sometime meeting, I'm doing the Doomsday Book. I did a Doomsday Book for my mother before she passed, where I got into all her accounts. I got where all her accounts came from, and I used the excuse for her to, just in case for some reason she couldn't pay her bills one month, at least I was able to get in and pay her bills and not that I was taking over her accounting or anything, but I will say that when she passed, everything was liquid. I was joint on her accounts and stuff like that. So it all was very easy for me to close out her accounts and close out, her will and that type of stuff. Her estate, I guess, is the word I'm reaching for, because I had access. I was joint on everything that she had. So it was just, filing for life insurance and stuff like that. But I don't have kids to do that with. And I too am kind of private in how much I open up the kimono to the rest of the family. I do have a nephew that I'm kind of giving him the idea of what's out there and where it's going. But one of the things that I'm going to talk with Todd this year when I come in is he's talked to me about instead of using the will to say 20% goes to this person, 10% goes to this person, and so on and so forth, is that he can do that in my accounts distribution of, when instead of my one beneficiary getting 100%, I now have 7 beneficiaries getting different percentage rates. And so that takes it out of probate and moves that stuff easier. So, but I keep talking about wanting to get down and do that. And I'm using this July as when I finally, get off my duff and figure that out and come in with that information for them. So it starts getting a little more realistic there. So that's one thing that you might keep in mind too, Tony, is that stuff can stay out of probate that way. So
Good, good. Did
Yeah.
we get a new attendee, number 8? I don't know if that's Nancy or not.
I don't know who that is. I can't see a name. Looks like they're just logging in or trying to log in. So
That might be Nancy, and if it's you, Nancy, take the speaker mic on.
So thanks for sharing that, Jamie. That's what this is designed to be, is kind of a collaborative discussion more than me just sitting here talking. Nobody wants to hear me talk anyway. So this is good. Just a couple thoughts I would add on to that. As you know, or for people that have accounts with us, last year, we, as part of our beneficiary designation kind of push that we do every year, that I mentioned at the beginning of the call, we added trusted contacts to every account as well. So Tony and anybody else that has accounts that's not with us at TD, make sure that you consider having a trusted contact listed on your accounts as well. What I've done to be proactive is I've reached out, not to everybody yet, but what I try to do is reach out to all the trusted contacts on accounts and introduce myself, just to be a resource for them and let them know what it means to be a trusted contact. So if you're not familiar with trusted contact, it's not a power of attorney. They don't get access to the account. We don't share personal information. But if I'm trying to get a hold of Jamie and I can't, or if he's back in Africa and trapped, which he almost did with COVID, Jamie, or he just seems off and he doesn't seem like himself, I have somebody I can go to and express my concerns. The same thing with our custodian TD. So, I bring that up as just a best practice, but also that's why we're here, to be an advocate for you and your family when things go awry. So just keep that in mind. Was that Nancy? We lost her, whoever it was. So.
I'm not sure. I'm at the store and Nancy's at home, and she sent me but I'll make sure we get her on the next call. So y'all do this every month?
Yes, it's usually it alters sometimes. It's usually the second Thursday of every month. Yep. And then the only thing I'll say too, that I've been kicking around for the last year. I have it with all the new things that I bring out every year. I have too many ideas, and I joke with Tracy. I'm like, we need to put it on a board. I can't institute anything new for 60 days. But I just like creating new things. And one of them is doing family meetings. So I will be rolling out at some point some kind of systematized or formalized family meeting deliverable for people that want that. So I will host it. I will facilitate that as an objective third party and say, hey, let's get your kids together, or your beneficiaries, your niece or nephew, and let's talk about this stuff. Obviously, we want to be on the same page in terms of what we're sharing, but it's mostly going to be what I envision it being more about the behavioral and the emotional stuff, more so than really knowing all the money that you have, right? So I anticipate that probably Q2, Q3 of this year, we'll roll that out. So any feedback on that or suggestions or interest, just let me know. So.
I say, wow. I think that'd be really neat. That could be very, very interesting. I have no problem being the guinea pig for something like that either, because my little circle of my wife and my 4 children, that's pretty aligned, but I couldn't even imagine doing this with my other 7 brothers and sisters and dad. Wow. So you could have some very interesting sessions there, I think, with that family thing. I think it's a great idea. It could be very interesting.
Yeah, well, thank you. I agree. That's part of why I put the brakes on, because I know it could be a big project. So I want to make sure that we're thoughtful about it and at least have a more formalized agenda and process, because that could be like herding cats, right?
I think the list of what you do at the meeting is one, but the list of what you're not going to do is probably longer.
Right.
Good luck.
Yeah. Well,
Sounds
maybe
cool.
I'll take you up on that. We'll talk more about that at some point. So. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. It's the top of the hour. Tony, thanks for your participation coming in. Same with you, Jamie, and everybody else. And yeah, we'll be in touch and see you next month at least.
Nice to meet you all. Enjoyed it.
Take care.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.